Meanwhile, the Lagos State government has issued a fresh warning to residents of Lekki, Ikorodu and Ajegunle areas to relocate from lowlands to highlands to avoid being victims of the flooding. This is just as the residents of Ijegunle Ikorodu area are counting their losses after Monday's intense rain. They say the flooding is nothing new in their community, but this is worse than they have ever seen. Residents of Ijegunle are blaming the severity of the flooding on an abandoned drainage project in the area, while calling on the government to complete the work before another disaster happens. Lagos State Commissioner for Environment, Tokunbo Wahab, said Lagos as a coastal city is exposed to various vagaries of climate change and will experience flash flooding this year. For more on this, the Executive Director of Foundation for Environmental Rights, Advocacy and Development, Nelson Wanfo, joins me on the news. Good to have you join us, Mr. Nelson.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
So your organization works very closely with vulnerable communities. So what specific gaps have you identified, especially in how the state governments especially respond to NIME's annual flood forecast? And when you look at it in terms of their early warning systems, their community preparedness, rather.
Yeah, thank you so much. The NIME prediction came in time so that the government can prepare to mitigate some of the impacts of the flooding. You have been reading about the devastating flooding in some parts of the state across the federation. And when that prediction came up, NIME came up with solutions supporting the government to ensure that there is a lot of community sensitization, there is a lot of environmental friendly standards, and there's a lot of stakeholders engagement to mitigate this effect of this flooding. And regrettably, up till now, despite the NIME predictions and the NIME warning, we can see floods ravaging so many cities across the federation, like the Lagos flooding, the one that happened at Jos and some other states. And the NIME are still giving their predictions. So I think that there are some lot of gaps on the areas of government to respond to early warning signals by doing a lot of community sensitization, by doing capacity building, and also engage with communities that are in the front line of impact of this flooding by looking at the drainage systems, looking at the critical infrastructures on the ground, and also ensure that they create a sustainable environment for the free flow of water. So I think there are some lapses on the areas of government being very proactive to respond to this warning, and also for them to activate early warning signals to address the impact of the flooding in the various states that have been affected across the country.
And in previous flood seasons, we've seen massive displacement, and even now, especially in rural and riverine areas. Has your foundation tracked how climate-related displacements has been addressed in terms of resettlement, access to relief, and the protection of environmental rights?
Yeah, I actually started part of our campaign. We've been engaging with the line government agencies. We conducted a baseline study where we did out a map-up of the community, the affected impact communities of the flooding immediately after the NIME prediction. And that our report was also made public. And then we also engaged the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, in the federal level and SEMA in the state levels, so that they can look at the report that we have come up and begin to address those issues, especially trying to resettle and then also move out communities that are already prone to this impact of this flooding. You can remember what happened in the other year flooding that happened in Bayelsa, in Kogi, in Anambra, and other riverine coastal areas. People were displaced, houses were submerged, and we hope that the government will be more proactive in this 2025 flood alert so that we can look at how we can resettle communities who are in the danger of this flooding. So I hope that government will be more proactive, that especially right now that the NIME predictions and the warnings are coming up almost every day, to look at how we can look at all those frontline communities that are going to be impact of this flooding and begin to plan for a resettlement plan to move them so that we can conserve the livelihood and then save the lives and properties of those people who might be affected by this flooding.
And it's quite shocking that they have to wait for the rains to even start because there are early warning predictions by NIMET. But there's growing concern that many flood-prone areas are not even aware of NIMET's predictions. From your field work, what role should civil society and the media be playing, especially in bridging the gap between technical forecast and then grassroots action, which it looks like is what's actually missing?
Yeah, that's actually very key. That's actually why we have activated our community response team so that we have that proposal to work with these line government agencies, with NEMA, NIMET, and the state SEMAs, so that we can do a community sensitization and advocacy. So community people will understand that they are at risk of this flooding. So most of them are not even aware that they are at risk at these flooding issues. And that is why when the flood comes, you see that flood ravaging the whole areas and the community being at the receiving end. So it is very key, it's very important that since these NIMET warnings have been come up here, and the government should groups, community-based groups, so that we can activate early community warning response by building their capacity, building community resilience, creating an impact so they will understand the essence of the flood and begin to plan mitigation factors to address it. So the gap has been there. Government have not been very proactive to the warnings. Government have not been very proactive to engage the communities, and communities involved have been impacted are not even aware that they are at the risk-prone flood areas. So it is very important. It is key that we need to activate an early warning response, community capacity building community resilience.
Absolutely.
So that they can
just sensitization in general has to be done, I guess, because and that has to start even before the rains. Thank you so much for your time. A really interesting point you made there, Mr. Nelson Owanfo.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.